Bruh, y'all already know what it is. Your boy Yaakov, what it do? The outlet to reality, the holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago. What up? This is the place where you want to hide from your drama or maybe hide from your baby mama. Just kidding. But anyways, fans, thank you for staying tuned. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And today we have a very special guest. He is a long-time Las Vegas radio personality and a Hall of Famer and an author. Give it up for Aaron Phillips.
Whoa! Give my own standing ovation. Yes. Round of applause. How are you?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm so happy you're here, man. It was hard to get you.
Yeah. You just weren't looking in the right places. That's what it is.
So, right?
Anyway, listen, it's like the latest I've ever done an interview, and I'm not used to answering questions. I'm used to asking them. So, you got me at a little bit of a handicap here.
Hey, you know what? It's an honor to be the first. Yeah. So look, I do want to share so everyone knows and my fans, your fans. So interesting story. Yesterday I went to one of my favorite bakery store. It was called Bagel Cafe yesterday. I went for a good run. And I'm wearing my Hanukkah sweater. And the first thing Aaron says is, I like your sweater. You know what I'm saying?
It's how I roll, baby.
Right? And we're sitting together. We're waiting for our food. And next you know, I was telling him, I went to a Hanukkah party yesterday. And it was a good time. And I got the sweater from Target. It's one of my favorite stores. And next we were talking about Judaism, growing up in, living in Vegas and how our family lives in Jersey. I think that was wild.
6 degrees of separation. Once again, showing that you never should talk about anybody because you never know where they're from. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm out here 25 years now come August, and people talk, I mean, being from Jersey, and as we talked, we're like, we could have throw stones at each other back in Jersey. We would have hit each other. But as well as I do, that New York City area, a melting pot of cultures and people coming together. Well, Las Vegas and the West Coast has really become that as well. And, I joke about, and you now can appreciate this, 5,000 plus years ago, Moses led Jewish people out of the desert. And now here we are all these years later, we're freaking coming back to the desert. You know what I'm saying? And there's so many people out here from where we're from on the East Coast that all of a sudden, in 2 days, I met someone on Saturday who was in my hometown for 7 years and came from there. Now here I am, like you said, the next day, you and I are just sitting out of the blue, striking up a conversation. We go to find out that, you have family at this part of Jersey where my wife was from, and I'm not far from there. And you just never know, and one thing leads to another. And what I love about that, though, in all honesty, Yaakov, is that you and I are not afraid just to strike up a conversation with people. And we smile, we talk, we're not afraid to just be kind to everybody. I mean, that's a statement I close out my shows with. Be kind to everybody. Why? Because we're all we have, and in today's society, the more that people can do what you and I did yesterday, just striking up a conversation, all it took was your sweatshirt that day, yesterday, for us to have a really cool 10-minute conversation before I took my bag of gold home for what I spent at Bagel Cafe yesterday for breakfast. Here we are today.
Right. It's crazy. It's a small world. And I always say, the best way to network is getting out of your comfort zone and just, making a friend. And I think that's what we have great personality. We're great storyteller. And so, and we're Jewish. So that's another plus, what I'm saying?
And people can't tell that because we're not talking enough with our hands. You know what I'm saying? Right. It is so true though. If you have it, because of what we do. I'm 17 years behind a microphone just here in Vegas. I was on the microphone back in Jersey for a short period of time, but the bulk of my career, 17 years, has been here. 2018, I was inducted into the Las Vegas Entertainers Hall of Fame. That and $5 only gets me coffee at Starbucks. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have the personality to do what we do. And I'll strike up a conversation with anybody. When, my wife and I go out for dinner, I ask for a server that has personality, because to me, that is part of my experience in a restaurant. I want to be able to have fun and laugh and smile with just the server, so that I have so much fun. I'll have a little fun and call the manager over and get real serious with the server. Mr. Manager, I got to tell you, I really didn't like the meal, but your server was kind of play all that, and the personality kind of comes out, and I love doing it. To the point of where I don't get anybody in trouble. Nothing I do is to harm anybody. It's just fun and laughter and conversation.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Now I do gotta ask you, right? Because you're one of my biggest stars. How did you get into radio? That's the big thing. Like, did somebody help you, or you found a mentor along the way?
Great question. When I was back east before I moved to Vegas, I was involved with a community service group called Kiwanis International. For those who don't know what that is, it's an international community service organization. And back in Jersey, I was a lieutenant governor, which basically is like a regional manager in business over certain stores, or in this case, clubs. And so one day I was speaking at a club, and as the members went around introducing themselves, this one person said up, my name is so-and-so, and I own a radio station here in Homedale, or Keyport is actually where it was in New Jersey, WCNJ. It's a little nonprofit station. And all of a sudden my antennas went up. I was like, zoning in on this guy. So that after the meeting, I went up to him. And at the time I had my own credit and collections company, helping businesses get their monies. And I said to him, I said, well, why don't we barter? You teach me the radio business, and, I'll go out and collect your bills for you. And they did that. I did the last hour of morning drive time from 9 to 10. And then every Monday night, I did a sports recap show. Obviously we're from, you have the Giants and the Mets and the Jets and the Yankees. But then you have the South Jersey area, the Philadelphia Flyers and Phillies and Eagles and high school. And so I really just honed my craft, kind of doing that once a week. And then shortly after that, I moved out here. I handed out my tapes to just about every program director that I can find out here. And I'm sure somewhere today in abandoned desk somewhere are my tapes, because I decided to get into radio at the time the monopoly on radio was breaking down. So fast forward 17 years ago, I answered an ad on Craigslist. Oh. That's right, Craigslist. It was a production company. They were looking for color commentator for Junior Golden Gloves boxing that was being held up in Mesquite, which is about 90 minutes north of us, for those who don't know, here in Vegas. And post-production, they didn't like the sound of the play-by-play guys, so they literally erased that guy's voice. I sent in a resume about 3 months before I actually got a call. Now, I didn't know anything about boxing. I mean, baseball, football, basketball, and growing up watching Wide World of Sports, I would catch an occasional boxing match, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman. 30 days before this meeting with the program director, my wife and I and kids, we took a 30-day free class at a boxing gym. So I learned a hook from a cross and an uppercut and a jab just enough that when I passed the audition, I went into the studio, and the play-by-play guy, who I'd never met before, I was hired as the color. We had such great chemistry over the 3 weeks that we revoiced these matches. I said to him, we had such great chemistry, and he was a professional athlete. He played baseball in 3 major league organizations, called Harlem Globetrotter, basketball, 600 professional boxing matches, yada, yada, yada. And I said to him, we have such great chemistry, we should do a sports show. You, the professional athlete, can talk about any sports subject from that perspective. Me, I'm just the everyday Joe fan. I think every coach and manager, believe me, idiots, you know what I'm saying? And And that was the unique perspective that we were able to give in the show. And in due time, in 2006, the Sports Zoo was launched. And then from there, we was on a little station here. We moved it to Fox Sports locally. Then that partner and I decided to go in different directions. And for 7 years, I did Vegas Unwrapped, which was an internet show, really my first introduction to internet. And so bottom line is this, I'm self-taught. Being a Kiwanian and a lieutenant governor, I spoke in front of groups of 5 to 5,000. I was not afraid of the stage, and the personality just sort of came out. Because you know this. I mean, if you believe in something and it comes from the heart, it's very easy to talk about, and it really was kind of easy for me to make that transition once I understood that I was on live radio and my opinion of voice was being heard differently than doing a Kiwanis meeting. And the biggest advice that I gave myself, and because I train others to do what you and I do, by the way, byte hard drive somewhere here on my desk that has everything my voice has been on since day one, commercials, voiceover shows, you name it. And I critique myself. And let's face it, a doctor's worst patient is themselves. So we're going to be our worst critic, except for my wife. She's worse than I am on me, but that's a whole nother story. But that's how I've honed my craft, and I've just done it. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm Dan Rather or, Walter Cronkite, but I think I do a pretty good job. And fortunately, with the people I've spoken to over 17 years, which have ranged from business people to entertainers to mobsters, I think I do pretty good. They haven't taken me out yet, so I'm grateful for that.
Wow, man, that's amazing story. And I gotta be honest, like I've seen you've hosted even for wrestling matches, right?
Yeah, I do. I do commentary for wrestling. This past Friday, I did commentary for Ultimate Women in Wrestling. They had a big show out at Mandalay Bay. So I was lead commentary, and I know it's a tough job to be surrounded around beautiful women. I know, but somebody's got to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I also do, commentary for some of the independent organizations here in Vegas, Big Valley Wrestling, and a couple of others. I host shows. I host fundraisers. I do 5 different shows like you and I are doing. And I always look to develop more, but I have 5 shows right now on the air, ranging from a financial show to wrestling, obviously, to my own show. This is called a cheap plug, Aaron Zauer with Aaron Phillips. Always got to be branding, but which is an entertainment style show, a lot like what you do. So I love being behind the microphone, and the day that I don't get the excitement, the woolies in the stomach, that's the day I know it's time to hang up my microphone because I just lost the passion for it. Fortunately, that has not happened. I was as excited and nervous as all get out last Friday night for the wrestling event. And that's what I want it to be, And so, like I said, I travel. I've done stuff in Arizona. I'm going up to Northern Cali in September. In January to host a gala on a Saturday night for a friend of mine. So wherever I'm needed, I consider this entertainment. Some may not, but I do, because, when you're in front of a crowd, you got to keep them engaged, and you have a shorter window to do it as someone who's a host or an MC than the main entertainers or whatever. And with, for instance, the 5 different types of shows that I do, I host them all very differently. And they're all a little different style of hosting that I believe is acting. I have to fit the character of the show. If you did a different kind of show than what you're doing, you would probably host it very differently. And so, it's you can teach skills, but you can't teach passion, and you can't teach talent. I can't sing. I'm not going to, I can't sing. I can't dance. I can't do impressions. I have a face for radio, except for this screen right now. But yeah, it's just wherever I can apply my talent at. And I've lost some jobs, some voiceover jobs where I couldn't just hit the voice that the client wanted for a certain tone in a commercial. It's not perfect, but I know my niche. I know what I want to do. I know what I want to accomplish. I'm even doing work in front of a camera on some TV shows where I'm part of an ensemble as well, because I'm trying stuff in front of the camera. Like you mentioned, and thank you for mentioning, I wrote a book. All of that's entertainment. I believe it is, because you're having people suspend reality to live somebody in another time, in another time warp or parallel universe with somebody else and their experiences. And you were worried of not asking enough questions. I wouldn't be able to stop talking. So I'll let you ask another question.
Oh man, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Now, I do gotta say, I think that, and I can agree 100%, being a host for a radio or a podcast, you have to capture the audience attention. And you're so right. I feel like we have to, like, before I had you on, I was practicing a little bit how I was gonna do my intro, because I don't wanna I didn't want to mess up. So I was like, I gotta get this right, and it's all about practice, acting. And I always say too, and I agree, I think that a lot of time people, they do the entertainment for the wrong reasons. Some of them do it for, oh, I just want to be rich. But the real truth is that you have to do it because you love it, no matter if you don't
Correct.
make money.
I totally agree. Passion to do what you do, if you know you're going to do it for a long time, is very important. The old saying is, if you enjoy doing what you do, it's not work, it's fun. So I totally agree. And I do this because I enjoy it. The nice thing is that someday I may end up retired on the beach somewhere, God willing. I could still do my shows. As long as I have an internet connection and a laptop and a microphone, I could still connect to a studio and still do a show no matter what. You have to have it, because if you don't have the passion for it, your viewers are not going to buy into it.
Mm-hmm.
A dear friend of mine who is a singer dating back to the time when Wayne Newton was here in town, started in Vegas at the same time. I heard him sing, and I became friends with him. I told him, when I listened to him sing, he delivers the lyrics in a way that if one person out of whatever size audience you want to call it, 500, 5,000, if one person gets the message that's in the song because of his passion and the way he delivers it, then I know he's satisfied. If what you and I do, we entertain somebody and put a smile on somebody's face, or educate them and teach them, or open their eyes into something that they didn't know, I'm satisfied with that, as I'm sure you would be. My book about my health transition from 354 pounds to 215 pre-pandemic. Of course, COVID-19 has given me the COVID-20 that I'm trying to fight back off. But I shared what I learned. I shared my story with people. And if one person got something out of that, then I'm okay with that. One of my proudest moments in what I do, well, there were a couple, but during the pandemic, I never stopped doing my show. I went to the studio. I know there was a limit of people, 10 or less. Well, my studio had 4 or 5 people maximum, because my goal was once a week for 1 hour a day, or on a Saturday, or whenever the show was, I wanted to divert people's attention away from the garbage of what was going on in the news. I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion on my shows. Any of my shows never have, never will. I want to entertain. I want to be goofy, silly, informative, and fun. And so being able to maintain doing the shows during that time was very important to me. I'm very proud of the fact that I never missed a show. The other time was after the 1 October incident that we had here in Vegas a number of years back. My last show that I did on a radio station before I switched over to internet station, I did a 2-hour special on the 1-year anniversary of that event. My first hour, I had a studio filled of guests who were there, and I asked them to talk about what was going on right up to the time the shooters started shooting. My second hour was how they all handled the event and since then. And it was one of the most powerful shows that I've ever done, that if that was ever going to be the last show that I ever would have done behind a microphone, I would have been happy, because it was a meaningful show to not only me, but to the people who were my guests, to be able to talk about it. And I know my audience. If you don't have the passion, I don't care what you do for a living. If you don't have the passion for it, you are doomed.
Yeah, very true,
So,
brother. Wow, brother. Now I do want to pick your brain a little bit. And I know we talked about this yesterday.
mhm.
Because you've been in Venice than me. I've only been here almost 3 years. So I'm a fresh cat, you know. Say fresh meat. So I want to know what has changed in the Jewish community that you've seen from the time you've been here and now.
Wow. Um, Knowledge and experience of the Jewish community. When I moved here, Temple Beth Shalom, which is now up in Summerlin, was down off of like Okie in Maryland. They were just in the process of building the synagogue up off of Town Center in DI, where it is now. My mom, I just passed 22 years on November 22nd since she passed. My mom died of complications from diabetes. She ended up with a double amputation about a week, 10 days apart before she succumbed to the illness. The facilities here, the hospital, the transport, they didn't know what to do. Literally, they did not know what to do with my mom's leg, how to pack it, how to prepare it. We had to call a rabbi from Jersey, from Linden, New Jersey, to speak to the rabbi here, coordinate with a funeral home here, and the hospital to make the proper preparations. So that was the first thing. Second thing was when we were back east, my sister still lives back in Linden, New Jersey, where I'm from. And we sat Shiva there for a couple of days before we got on a plane and came back. And while we were there in Jersey, I said to my wife, I said, I asked my dad if he was planning on sitting here when we got back to Vegas. And he said, no, nobody knows me, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. And then as I'm sitting with my wife is next to me, and I said, I'm just not comfortable with that. There's no obituary going in the Review Journal here in town. And a lot of people knew me because of networking. I'm a big networker in town, and my radio career 22 years ago really had not really started gaining a ton of momentum yet. And so I decided to sit Shiva back in Vegas. So I called back to our rabbi here. And what's the first thing you ask for when you sit Shiva? Shiva boxes, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have them here. Nobody had Shiva boxes here. So, I managed to find a milk crate for my dad. And I just took a cushion off the floor, off the couch, and I sat on the floor. And, I'm sure in other episodes you've probably talked about, what the traditions are in sitting Shiva. But those kind of things now don't happen. There are Jewish segments of cemeteries here where they're prepared now. The growth of the community, there are more and more synagogues making themselves known, basically from Henderson all the way up to Summerlin. One of the synagogues that I belong to that my daughters were bas mitzvahed in now has changed ownership and has rebuilt itself. It's grown, and that's great. That are, like I said, I joked about it earlier, and I think part of this is because the Jewish people are coming back into the desert now, and so because the people complain about the dry heat out here. Well, I didn't believe in it when I first moved here or when I lived back east, but for a lot of people, the dry heat is healthier for people with arthritis and joint issues, and elderly people, and all the Jewish people included. They're moving here because they're not going to Florida anymore. The humidity kills them.
Right.
And because of the influx of the belief of Judaism, the population had to grow. There are food stores in town, as you know, that have certain sections, which is ultra kosher products. When I first moved here, you couldn't find kosher unless you knew somebody who's driving to California, to the California Jewish markets out there, to the ultra Orthodox, and you gave them an order. You had to spend it was like $1,000 for like a couple of pieces of beef that were kosher before that even seeped into our city and having the kosher experiences. So it's taken 25 years for it to become now standard practice here in Vegas in terms of the community, beliefs, traditions, and just just the growth of the knowledge of the tradition and the religion.
Wow, man. That's unbelievable how, like, it's changed so much for the better.
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish community has grown, and I think that's beautiful because now with this time with the rise of anti-Semitism,
Mm-hmm.
it's sad, and I feel like us coming together, bringing different Jewish people with all different backgrounds and doing Shabbat together. I
Mm-hmm.
think is beautiful because it shows the light that many people have never seen.
I will say this. Growing up back in Linden, when for Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, we went to temple. We had a police presence there because really they were just helping to cross over the main drag. And it wasn't like it is today. And for the high holidays, I go with my dad to the Chabad in Summerlin. My wife and I are not members of her temple now, but we still go so I can be with my dad for the holidays. It is very nerve-wracking, and you brought it up with the anti-Semitism, and we all know what's been in the news lately with Kanye West and Kyrie Irving and all that stuff. But it is still very unnerving that when you walk up to the temple and there are 3 guards outside, fully armed. And this year when we went there, they had a German Shepherd for sniffing, right? I know inside the temple there were undercover individuals that were armed in case, God forbid, something happened. The security measures just to go experience your religion is very nerve-wracking when you know you have to go under protection of gun. And that's what the world has come to with the anti-Semitism. And I'm sure we're not the only one. I'm sure there are other religions out there that have to face those sorts of consequences or obstacles to do what they want to believe in. But there are times where even I myself, I don't let people know I'm Jewish. I have a beautiful Star of David. I rarely wear it because sometimes I get nervous. You just don't know that person walking down the street. You say hello to them. They see the star hanging. Next thing you know, you're shanked or this or that, or I don't want to be bullied. I went through that in school. I'm 58 years old. No one's going to bully me anymore. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's on me to hide who I am. I get that. But I'm paranoid about it because I'm going to synagogue under armed guard, and
Yeah.
that sucks. That sucks. That's the bad part of it all now, that we're not free. Life has come around in full circle where one questions freedom now. We think we're free, but we're not free because of people's beliefs. And one thing about social media that adds fuel to the fire, people argue over opinion. Okay? Everybody's entitled to an opinion. Hey, it's nighttime right now. You may tell me it's daytime. Okay, well, I don't believe you, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. But why can't people just argue over factual things that you can prove to each other and say, no, it's 9 p.m., it's dark outside, I can show you outside. Just because you and I may not agree with the type of food or the day or a team or politics, it's laughable by what's going on social media just because people don't agree on how long the day is.
Yeah.
And that's sad. And that's what our world is coming to. It's very disappointing. If I have, my daughters are 29. My wife and I will be married 34 years next month in January. If we were 34 years ago today, we were 25 or whatever it was, thinking about a family, I got to be honest with you, Yaakov, I don't know that I would bring children up in today's world for fear of not knowing where it would be almost 30 years from now for them to deal with it. People are worried about having no water here in Las Vegas soon. Hello, I don't know that I'd want to bring people up in this world today.
It is scary. I'm not gonna lie. And interesting, you said something that I have to add on. So for me, I was bullied in high school because I was different. I was, being the only Hispanic and being Jewish was
Mm-hmm.
it was very tough because my school was predominantly black and brown, and all the Hispanics were mostly Catholic. And they looked at me at first when I never told them I was Jewish with the Star of
Mm-hmm.
David. They thought I was part of the Latin Kings
Oh, wow.
because that's the same star they use, and so I got into a lot of trouble. and I would tell them I'm not in the gang. I'm Jewish, and it was just so hard to explain that,
Sure.
Jewish. A lot of people don't understand that, being Jewish is not only a nationality, but it's also an identity. It's like a
Hmm.
religion too. It's a religion too. So it's hard to explain it because most people think, oh, it's just a religion, but we're a people, and there's no
Correct.
specific race. You have Sephardic, you have Ashkenaz, you have Hasidic. There's different sects, and at the end of the
Right.
day, we're still family.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's kind of dogged us in a way negatively is that the Jewish people have always been labeled the chosen one of God, right? And I want to say, I want to believe that's led to a lot of jealousy in the world over these thousands of years. There's a reason the Jewish New Year is celebrated at, what was it, 5439, 5,439 years ago, not just 2023 years ago. Um, and I think part of that comes from jealousy that God chose us to be his people and that he chose to save us from Pharaoh in order for our ancestors to allow you and I to exist with a belief system of 613 commandments, although somebody really needs to review them because sacrificing a lamb in the middle of the street, I'm not so sure about, needs to really be updated. However, um, it's just one of those things where I think it stems from a lot of jealousy. And we as a people are uh, uh, very conscious of our surroundings and meticulous and detail oriented. That's why we're accountants and doctors and lawyers and handle, CPAs, and in the jewelry business, we handle all the expensive stuff. And for the most part, I don't, you don't, but we know in New York City that's there. And I think to an extent, I think a lot of people are jealous of who we are and wish that they had it as well as a people, like you were alluding to.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, and well, brother, look, I'm gonna wrap it up real quick. Guys, this is the Outlet to Reality, the holdest podcast in Vegas and Chicago every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Ching ching. Y'all know where to find me. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Apple Music, the Outlet to Reality. My TikTok is at Yaakov28, and my Snapchat is Take More Pass It. And Aaron, where can my fans find you?
Oh my goodness gracious, where can't they find me? Easiest place is on Facebook, Aaron Phillips. My show is Aaron's Hour with Aaron Phillips. The main feed's on Facebook. On my wall, though, you can see all the different shows that I do. My website, aaronshour.vegas. It is under construction right now. I'm updating a lot of stuff, but that will be back up. Um, I'm not hard to find. They're friends with you, and you and I are now connected on Facebook. They can easily find me on your friends list. I want to point out, you notice in the background of my wrestling belts, which I'm surprised you didn't ask about. A lot of people do. But you see this white one that I'm kind of pointing to over my right shoulder?
Yeah.
Okay, so the main plate, and I should have thought about it. This is a commemorative belt from Israel. It's got the WWF logo in the middle. I can never be a weather person because I always get this backwards. But right in the middle, there's the Star David. It's got the six arms of, not the menorah, but the six, I call it the candelabra. But that's an Israeli heavyweight championship belt that I found online, made in Israel from a belt manufacturer that's out there. And that's one of my proudest belts that I have here because of knowing where it came from. Aaron's Hour is out there. My book, Let My Voice Speak to You, is available on Amazon for $6.99. You can also message me, and I will be happy to tell you how you can get an autographed copy as well. I can't autograph Kindle. That doesn't really work so well. So you do need a hard copy. But again, it's a book about inspiration, laughter, and education. I share behind-the-scenes laughter and silly stuff that goes on behind a microphone, my health transition, and some tidbits of how Yaakov and I do what we do. So I appreciate the time, dude. You were pretty, like lenient on me with these questions, dude. I was expecting beating me up and like warping my brain right about now.